Those two words, standardized test, have a lot of negative associations for parents and students. They're usually treated as unfair, impersonal, and overly important. And all of those things can certainly feel true and may be true, and it's understandable that these tests create a sense of dread. Whether the tests are right or wrong is a bigger discussion than I can manage in a 3-minute video, so I'll just leave it at love them or hate them. They're typically a necessary part of the college admissions process. Our job at Launchpad is to help students get through the tests and get on with their lives. Most of our families have pretty strong feelings about this, but try to think about the coming information from an objective perspective. Understanding what a standardized test is and how they work is an important part of being a prepared test taker. The most important element to recognize is that the test is necessarily designed for a relatively wide range of ability levels. The difficulty level has to include everything from easy to hard for the test to reliably differentiate students' ability levels. Remember that I'm not commenting on whether the test actually does that. Don't shoot the messenger. That also means that most of the test questions, around 2/3 of them, will be of average difficulty. This can be reassuring for students who have picked up the idea that the test is only for smart kids. Totally not true. Most of the test is created for the average high school student, so the majority of the content will be right up your student's alley. Further, for students at very competitive high schools, it can be a reality check to know that the test is likely to be easier than what they see in school. That cuts down on the stress level considerably. Now that you know that there are easy, medium, and hard questions, how do they know what makes a question hard? When I ask students that question, usually when we're talking about the math part of the test, they typically respond with something like, there's more steps, or it's pre-cal, or it's a word problem. They're all usually shocked to learn that while those things are correlated, that actually has no direct bearing on the final categorization. Hard questions are designated as hard questions simply because most students get them wrong when they're testing out the question. But the reasons why students get them wrong can go far beyond ability. Questions that are really pretty easy but look scary frequently sneak into the hard section just because students give up before they try them. Further, questions that look much different from anything on school tests frequently land in the hard section, though the solution can be obvious if you take the time to think about it. Never assume you can't do a hard question without even reading it. The last part of standardization that students should understand is that there is no pattern to the answer choices. If there were, the Princeton Reviews of the world would have figured it out by now. Don't worry if you've answered A several times in a row. It's our human inclination to look for patterns. Our brains are essentially lazy and wired to conserve energy when possible. So we try to cut down on thinking by relying on patterns and routines. That's fine when you're deciding where to go for lunch. The same options tend to come to mind over and over, don't they? And it's great to rely on routine when you're trying to get out the door in the morning with everything you need. Backpack, check. Keys, check. Lunch, check. But a standardized test has to have randomized answers, since a pattern can be cracked, right? Those answer choices are intentionally not chosen by people. The computers do it. Further, the statistical probability of getting 3 A's in a row on a standardized test is 1 in 64, which is exactly the same probability as getting A, C, D. Did that blow your mind? Usually does. Now, the pattern thing might be relevant when taking a test fully written by humans. So if you're taking a test created by your history teacher, you might want to be wary of too many A's, since your teacher will be wary of too many A's too. But when it comes to the SAT or ACT, ignore the order of your answers. Now that you understand how the test works, it's less scary, right? Just don't try to outthink the test while you're doing it. Just answer the questions, bubble them in, and get on with your life.